All right, we're back live here with Mr. Brown, our English cousin,
Hello.
and hello there. We are going to talk some Enterprise. That's what we had talked about, chatting about before. I think we've talked about some of the other Star Trek series, and Enterprise, for me, I think is sort of the one that uh, divided fandom a little bit. As far as like a lot of people just like absolutely didn't like it. Other people really liked it.
Yeah.
And there's kind of a dividing line there. So, if you want to start off telling us a little bit your thoughts about the series, or your introduction to it, or anything
Okay.
like that.
I will say I have not watched all of it. I'm probably in the camp of what you've just said about these people who were a bit didn't like it.
Hmm.
Um, I've watched. I think I probably watched most of the first series, a little of the second, but I couldn't. For me, it was like a very cynical kind of reboot, kind of going into the past
Hmm.
and bringing something up which wasn't in canon.
Hmm.
So I couldn't really get past that.
Hmm.
I was probably only one of the few people who actually liked the theme tune as well.
Ah, okay.
So that's obviously off to a good start because a lot of the Trek people didn't like it, did they? So
Mm.
um, yeah, I watched a little bit towards the end as well. Considering what we've had recently with the Trek, I think it's one of those that I'm going to try and revisit because apparently everybody.
Well, it looks like we may have lost Mr. Brown there midstream. Let me see here. Are we going to get him back?
I'm
We're going to
back.
add him to
I'm
the
back.
stream. And
Hello.
Mr. Brown is back in the flesh.
Uh, it just dropped off. I just thought you'd had enough of me, so I'm
No,
gonna.
no.
I've just got up.
We're all in that shape.
Yeah, as I was saying, Commander,
Mhm.
I, I don't think I just felt it was a little cynical for my taste,
Mhm. Can you
and
elaborate on cynical?
the producers kind of going. I would have preferred another current kind of that era Star Trek show,
Yeah.
but they just kind of dragged this spaceship up called Enterprise, which nobody had ever heard before, or
Right.
the NX version.
Hmm.
It's not even there in the motion picture when they're in the.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even there, and it's
In the
like
little
for me,
museum room. Hmm.
yeah, it's for me. It was mm, no, no.
Well,
It's a,
yeah,
it
yeah.
didn't
Sorry.
get off, it didn't get off to a good start from my liking. Anyway,
That's that's what I've heard, from a lot of people. So the people who do like it have all said, the later seasons were much better. They were far superior to the first one or
yeah,
two. And if you've only seen the first one or two, and so I'll that's interesting because you and I are kind of in the same boat. I'll tell you my story here
okay,
with Enterprise because yeah, when they first announced it, of course, I was skeptical at this point because I had been burned, I sort of think, by Voyager. As I mentioned in another earlier stream, I came around to Voyager much later in life, but did not like it at the time. And I thought, okay, I want TNG. I want Deep Space Nine. I like that universe. I would
yeah,
even like something like what happened after the Dominion Wars or what happened, blah blah
okay,
blah. This kind of thing. And then they came out with they said Star Trek Enterprise, and I'm like thinking to myself, wait a minute, what now? And my
yeah,
head went back to
yeah,
that motion picture scene where they're looking at all the enterprises and there's the sailing ship and the aircraft carrier and the NCC 1701, and I'm like, there
where is it?
was no punky
Yeah.
little
Where
rocket
is it?
ship looking
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
That did not exist. And I thought, okay, I'm just being picky. Let me wait for the screenshots and the publicity shots to come out and take a look at that. And when I saw it, I thought at first my first thought was, okay, wow, hey, that's cool. Look, jumpsuits. That's kind of like what astronauts would wear if they were like working on a submarine or something.
Okay.
But then I saw all the displays, and I'm like, that's not where Mr. Spock's console would have come from. Logically, I mean, that's not where Uhura's communication station would have come from. This is like, I was thinking that they would have actually put some effort into continuity, between, say, our space shuttles today and the general look.
It's a difficult thing.
It's a very difficult thing, which is why prequels are a bad idea. It wasn't a time period that we as Trekkies or fans of the show really needed to see. It wasn't really something that we needed to experience, because it had sort of already been pre-established. And when you go in to do a prequel, you mess everything up. George Lucas did this with his own prequels. In a big way.
He should have had those first,
right? Or
instead of trying to be clever, which
right,
fair play, but
well, if you're going to be clever, at least turn it over to a competent writer. Who's gonna say, well, if Obi-Wan Kenobi said Yoda was the Jedi Master who trained me, I'm not going to make up out of whole cloth some imaginary non-existent person called Qui-Gon Jinn and just throw him into the movie. And you can't really do that to your fans, but they did. So anyway, we come back to Enterprise here, and it's like the Enterprise that was just kind of thrown in like Qui-Gon Jinn. It's the Qui-Gon Jinn of outer space, and it just sort of floats around and stuff. And so it was like, I was having flashbacks to the first episode of Voyager that I watched. I was so hyped for that, and very disappointed. But although in retrospect, it was not a bad first episode, all things considered. But my initial thoughts. So here's what was happening. I was planning at that point in my youth the Great American Road Trip with one of my best friends. We were going to be out on the road and traveling across the fruited plain of the United States, and so, but this show was going to air live, so we planned to find like a hotel or a bar or something,
Brilliant.
Like right at that time, and there was there are no bars that were wanting to play Star Trek, so we checked into a hotel, ran upstairs, turned it on like 10 minutes before, and we were really anticipating this. We had like a whole bunch of candy all around. This was going to be a moment, because Star Trek was going to was put to redeem itself.
This is what fans do.
Oh yeah, yes. And we were, boy. My buddy was more than I. Man, he knew everything. He had. I heard. I think Doomcock or someone was talking about the Starfleet medical manual. And he had that. He had everything. It was awesome. But so we were looking at this, and we were ready to go, and we were talking about, remember Voyager. And it was just kind of this low charisma captain kind of collecting a random crew. And then the Maquis kind of screwed up the whole Star Trek vibe in Voyager. Yeah. That was so terrible. They've got to fix all of that. They have to, because, hey, it's Hollywood. They want to make money. They like their fans. And so the show came on. And I will tell you right now, Mr. Brown, I think I blacked out. The only memory... Excitement? No, like in
disappointment.
Shock and disappointment. I know for a fact that we watched the entire episode, but I cannot tell you a single thing that happened beyond the point where there was a Vulcan lady in a shower. And she's like nude, and trust me, as a young man, I was not opposed to female nudity. But here's the thing: I am a toxic white male after all. But it's like, this is not anything we've ever seen in Star Trek. Vulcans don't like sensuously soap themselves up in co-ed showers.
They did that.
And well, apparently they did. And so we're just sitting here, kind of like looking at each other. And I said to him, is this
What
like
the
Starship
fuck?
Troopers? I mean, this is exactly a scene out of Starship Troopers, which
I
was a
love
goofy,
Starship
campy
Troopers.
movie. Well, yeah, it was a great movie, but it wasn't Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek is like holy writ, and Starship Troopers was something different. And we're just looking at each other, and for the suspension of disbelief completely ruined. We sat there and we talked, which was, that was completely verboten. When you're watching Star Trek, nobody
Yeah,
talks,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you just sit and absorb. And we just kind of were like, well, what's wrong with this? How come this is doing that? And that's why I missed the whole episode. And I watched snippets on accident of other episodes since then. And then
Okay.
at a later point, the very last episode, somebody told me later on, after I was done with the word Enterprise, they said, "Hey, Troy and Riker come back in that last episode." I'm like, "Really?" They're
Oh,
like, "Yeah, it's a holodeck adventure, the
oh,
whole darn thing." And I'm like, "Huh, that's fitting for such a crap show." So I watched it, and I was like, I was disappointed again, even though it had Troy and Riker. I'm like, this is awful. This is bad for Troy and Riker. This is an insult to whatever these, people, whether they're the characters or the actual actors, have gone through putting the Enterprise together. I just
yeah,
felt bad for Scott Bakula. I'm like, this
yes.
guy, poor guy. He's got good chops, good acting chops, and now he's at the helm of this disaster. And that was like, I could, after that it was just like, I'm just going to rewatch TNG over and over again and buy the box set. Um, so that's my experience with Enterprise, and I'm with you, where I'm at the point now where I'm like, I should probably go back and watch it. But the
Yeah.
thing is, it's so non sequitur to the canon that we know. It's still like a Doomcock keeps going on and on about how the Vulcans, should not have been this vast, have already explored all of space, by the time that they met the humans. And I'm not too up on that timeline, but
Yeah.
for me, it's like I look at the technology, and I'm like, it doesn't fit right. But somehow, okay, all that having been said, it was still an attempt to make Star Trek. It still was not spitting in
By
the face
by
of the fans,
yeah, by people who understood Star Trek.
or, or
But
who, yeah,
we did
or who.
who cared about it, but we didn't kind of. I think we were suffering from Star Trek fatigue,
Mhm,
which was a big
mhm.
problem. But
Well, that is true, but if they had, as you alluded to earlier, gone into the future a little bit, or if they had made a contemporaneous, another
yeah,
sort of a
yeah,
thing, then
yeah.
that might have generated continued interest.
But it's what Discovery have done it now, haven't they? But
Oh
at
boy,
least Enterprise had good writing.
yeah.
Um, have you heard of Robert Meyer Burnett?
Yes, the name is familiar. I've seen him.
He's a. I discussed this with a guy who I streamed with the other day. Robert is a very very big Star Trek aficionado,
Mhm,
and he was involved with the production of the. He basically put the TNG Blu-rays together
mhm.
with all the extra content. So if you've
Right.
got those, you'll see his name cropping up, and he is of the opinion that Enterprise, the last season of Enterprise, is some of the best Star Trek going, and it was cut off in its prime. Um, I, yeah, the last season is basically one big story arc,
Mhm.
and I saw the last episode with Troy and
Uh huh.
Riker, and I thought, what the? It just I think a lot of, if I remember rightly, a lot of people who'd been watching Enterprise were up in arms about that because it just totally um, diminished anything that Enterprise had worked for. If you know what I mean,
Right.
it
Right.
just seemed an easy cop out,
Mhm.
like that it was all a big holodeck adventure or something. And
Right.
I know that it left a bitter taste, but if
Yeah,
only
because
if only we knew now If only we knew then what we know now, we'd have just savoured every moment of that.
Yeah, well, we would have tried to, or prepared ourselves. I mean, I needed 10 years or so to prepare myself for the crap that they're out all over my beloved franchise now, because so I just still reel from this kind of stuff, especially for me now, and people have said people who were diehard aficionados of the original series are more
Yeah.
offended by Discovery, and people who are diehard aficionados of TNG are more offended by Picard. And I can say that for me, the offense with Picard there is just immense. It's like I can look at Discovery as almost like a farce, like this is a slapstick, Benny Hill kind of goofy. What in the world is this?
It's not that good, mate.
No, it doesn't rise to the level of
people likes Benny Hill. It's not that good.
and Picard is just the less said about it, the better.
Have you seen how many? Have you seen Picard? Have you seen any episodes?
I saw the first 2 episodes of Picard,
and then that was
it. Which was it?
Exactly the same here, Commander. Exactly 2 episodes, and I just thought. I don't even think I finished the second episode. I just thought, no.
Well, when that admiral looked in Picard's eyes and cursed at him, I was like, I was, again, I had sort of that Han Solo being murdered feeling, where it was like, you can't do this to my people. It's like if those were fighting words, I'm the kind of guy, you talk like that to my friend, my old man, it's going down. And but I had nobody to punch, so it was sort of a letdown. But but the whole premise of the show, I had a hard time even turning on the second episode, because the whole premise of the show again is based on something that's non-existent, right? Data had a daughter. We know who Data's daughter was. I mean, lol, right? I mean, and that was one of the most, to me personally, one of the most moving.
Oh yeah, it was a good episode. Yeah, it was a lovely episode.
It meant a lot to me, actually. And for them to take one of my favorite episodes and just vanish it in like a peal of laughter, and create this goofy, like, millennial weirdo kid that and I don't know, I just was like, I can't get into this show, this is too much.
The sheer fucking hubris moment for me was when that's the writers, including, don't get me wrong, including Sir Patrick Stewart,
I don't insult him,
booting in the bollocks hard all the fans of all the years who had invested their time, money, and effort into Star Trek up until that point. And that was just a kick in the bollocks for everybody. And every time I see that, it's
she wasn't just saying it to she wasn't just saying it to Picard. That was the writers speaking to generations of fans. How dare we think that this man was great? How dare we think that this man was a hero? How dare we think that these ideals that we know in our heart that Captain Picard and Captain Kirk and Spock embodied are worthy of admiration and praise and veneration? It was like being spit at in the face. And
it was.
And I don't come around for that kind of stuff. I mean, like I said, if that was something that was done to me in person, it would be a different situation, and I would have had a much more interesting night. But the fact that it's just like, I'm like, okay, well, they don't want my business, and so they don't have it. And we saw what happened. The whole thing cratered.
Yeah. Did you ever get into Voyager then?
Well, so with Voyager, I initially I hated it. Okay,
Yeah,
so I watched the first episode. I I came back hither and thither to see bits and pieces of it through the first two seasons.
yeah.
I paid slightly more attention. Like, I mean, I watched live episodes here and there when Seven of Nine made a debut, but only
That's when it started
occasional.
getting good.
And yeah, well, it did.
Yeah,
Not just for the purient sort of catsuit reasons, but it was overall it found its
it,
footing, I guess you
it
could
did.
say.
It did. It
Um,
did.
but I because in America when it was broadcast on it shifted networks. It went from Fox Network where all the Star Trek was to
Okay.
UPN, which was
Yeah.
like a tertiary nobody watched kind of crap, like sitcom reruns and
Yeah.
stuff. And it flipped around days, it changed hours, and so nobody really ever got to watch it. And I certainly couldn't be bothered. Many years later, this maybe 2015, I had a friend, a Trekkie friend, who sat me down and he said, "Look, you're not giving the show a fair shake." And he offered to sit. He said, "We will watch every single episode."
Oh, was he the pizza guy?
Yeah. He said,
That's a
"I will
good
buy you
friend.
pizza." And I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not going to turn down pizza."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so we sat and we watched the whole series, and I completely came around on it. I actually really enjoy Voyager. Almost. I'm not going to say more than TNG, but TNG was very formulaic, I guess you could say, and the characters were, or maybe I've seen it so many times I have all the lines memorized. But it's like it just seems like you know their reactions are generally predictable, right? And
Yeah.
that's good. But in Voyager, the characters are very erratic, and I don't think. I mean, maybe it was unintentional, but I think that it adds to sort of the humanity of the
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chakotay is going to act different in different situations. Paris is going to act different, and even Janeway and these other people are going to act different. And so it's like, how are they going to react in this situation? And it's not just sort of like they're going boldly through the universe as these sort of uber mensch and like the TNG crew. They're
Yeah.
kind of like stumbling their way across the galaxy in fits and starts, trying to live up to the mission. And that's what I found sort of endearing about it, because that's what we all want with Star Trek, isn't it? Is we want to see how humans can be better, in the future,
Yeah.
and even in difficult situations. So yeah, I came around on Voyager, but it was much later. And I never felt like coming around on Enterprise. If a show needs like 2 or 3 seasons to get its feet, I'm like, I don't know if I really trust it. But I like you said, I will go back at some point and watch Enterprise. I will.
Yeah. Apparently, there are some very, very good episodes in Enterprise. There was a Borg backstory where they found the Borg in the ice or something. So, yeah, I think it needs to be revisited. What I saw at the time and what I've seen is I didn't hate it, but maybe I just couldn't get past it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean, because even with Enterprise, and it seems like we both agree it was kind of a questionable product, at the time, even for Trek fans like us. But when we looked at it, we could see that was a Vulcan, that these were early Federation humans, that these people, that these characters were who they were portrayed to be. Whereas when I look at Discovery, and even when I look at Picard, it's like I'm looking at skin suits, of beloved ideas, like they've deboned Picard, thrown a zombie into his body, and then they make him walk around kind of looking like an old Picard.
Well, he is, though, isn't he?
Right.
Picard. If they was going to do that show, it should have been done 10 years ago. And Patrick Stewart, I don't think he truly understood what Picard was about, or what Star Trek means to people.
Right.
And they must have offered him a shitload of money to come back.
Maybe, but the thought occurred to me too that he, just like how Disney is willing to lose a lot of money in order to insult its fans to get, SJW street cred, Patrick Stewart might be a true believer. I mean, by a lot of accounts, he's quite progressive.
He was he was part of it because of his. Bearing in mind, this guy's in his early 80s and he's got more money than he knows what to do with.
Right, so it couldn't have been the money. I mean, what could they offer a man in his 80s? Oh yeah, well, I'll leave this for my third wife. Whatever. I mean, it's not.
There would have been. I would imagine there'd be a divorce settlement somewhere. Mm-hmm. There always is.
Right, right.
He came back to lecturers about stuff.
Well, that's all we got, wasn't it? It was just like a mobile Professor X wearing a phony Starfleet uniform, muttering at us under his breath,
and apologizing a lot.
Yeah, not even concur, like it didn't even make sense, the stuff he was apologizing for. Oh, the Romulans, this and and that's the thing. Okay, it's all like there's a legal phrase called the fruit of the poisonous tree, right? You can't have something good come out of something that's bad. So nothing good can come out of Kurtzman Trek. If Vulcan was destroyed and Romulus was destroyed and then you can't. I'm sorry, you can't put a good Trek story together. You're off in La La Land somewhere.
Yeah,
and Trek does beautiful alternate reality type shows. It does. Like the one where Kirk goes back and with the Nazis and they have to struggle with that, or the mirror universe that they find themselves in occasionally on DS9 and TOS, and and it's like. They do this very well. This was not anything like that. This was just, people who hate Star Trek.
Remember when you stream that certain words you cannot use, like Yahtzees.
Right. Okay.
That's a top tip, Commander. I know you're very new to all this, and so am I.
I think that it depends on where you're streaming, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long, YouTube will tolerate me, but hopefully long enough to.
I think you'll be okay, mate. Don't worry. You'll be okay. You'll be okay. As I said, I think personally, with you, just to go off the topic a little,
sure.
I think what I've heard you say and what I know you want to do, because I'm kind of helping the Commander a little. I think podcast is more your bag, as it were. Mm-hmm. Very nice to stream now and again. But I think doing a nice light stream like this is lovely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think maybe the serious, heavy stuff, save it for the kind of one-to-one, intimate podcast stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's just me. But ultimately, my friend, it's your channel. You do whatever you want with it.
Well, thank you. My goal is sort of to do whatever people would be interested in.
Yeah.
And I'm a fairly versatile conversationalist, so I can do the heavy stuff, but I can also do the light. And I don't want to just come off as always heavy, because my thing is there has to, so that's actually one thing I wrote down here is like, well, let's you and I talk about the future of Star Trek. Like yeah. what let me ask you then. Like, okay, so we'll just say, for the sake of argument, that Discovery is shut down, that Picard is shut down, that the property is sold to Company X, or say Seth MacFarlane, somebody who wants to take the franchise forward. Yeah. What would you want to see as a fan?
I can't believe Seth MacFarlane went to CBS or whoever it was and said, "Can I make a Star Trek show?" And they said no. What were they thinking in that? Who said no? I just cannot get my head around that. So they said no to Seth MacFarlane, who obviously is very bankable.
Mm-hmm.
So what did he do? He just made his own Star Trek show, and it's better than the shit that we get.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Right.
somebody somewhere at CBS or Paramount, whoever it is, needs to be sacked. That was the worst business decision I think they have made in a decade.
Well, besides greenlighting, Discovery and and that other stuff. But if they had
Well,
picked up Seth
yeah.
MacFarlane, they wouldn't have. Discovery would have been made with Seth MacFarlane at the helm. Right?
With I don't think the green light in Discovery was a mistake. Kind of, but the guys who Brian Fuller and Nick Meyer who started writing it, it could have been good because it would have been true to canon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got the boot, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest is history, as we all know. A certain gentleman came in with his crew, and oh dear.
Well, they've gone through so much actual talent, in Discovery that it's like there's really nobody left that would have any that they could choose from because they fired anybody who would want to work with them.
With regards to the future, apparently they're going to be shooting season 4 of Discovery. I believe it when I see it. Apparently, even the people who Discovery was aimed at are starting to jump ship now.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why Doomcock is just apoplectic, isn't he, with it all? And that's a big word. He's just
mm-hmm.
the poor guy. The poor guy is just spinning with rage.
Well, I mean, aren't we all, right? I mean, in our own way, and in our own time, there's only so much abuse that someone can take, before they fight back, before they start spewing lava, or before they just turn away and walk into the distance.
Yeah.
And that's so. I'll tell you, I mean, if since we mentioned Orville, I mean, my thought on the future of Trek is.
Have you seen the Orville?
Oh yeah, I've watched every episode multiple times. I absolutely love it.
Good lad.
Oh yeah. It's for me that is the future of Trek. I would rather at this point now. I mean, I'm happy to leave the Star Trek canon as it was. And move on. I want to see what happens with the Orville universe. I want to see what happens with that crew and those, and the Krill and Yaphet and all these other people. I want to see what happens there. I don't know if that makes me a Star Trek traitor, or if that just makes me a good fan of science fiction.
It makes you a good fan because end of the day, the Orville is Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Just rebranded. That's for me. When I said Seth MacFarlane, when I want to make a Star Trek show, that was the show he's made. Mm-hmm. But the people who he asked said no. So it's Star Trek. It's just he wasn't able to give it the name Star Trek. Simple. Because all his crew, all his writers, directors are Voyager people,
alumni. Yeah.
To me, Commander, it is every time I look at it, the feel and how it looks and everything. For me, it is Star Trek Voyager. For me,
and I think it's proof that Star Trek could be made 25% different and still be good and acceptable to fans.
It's been made 75% different,
and it's still good and acceptable to fans.
And people look at it and think, "Yep, Star Trek."
Well, I sure do, and I mean, whatever bottomless pit of money CBS is getting, for season 4 of this or season 2 of Picard or whatever, I just hope in the back of my head that the next season of the Orville comes out, and we're able to
it's
take
going to be
advantage
good.
of
Yeah,
that.
season 3 traditionally is the season, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh,
Um,
for TNG it was for sure. Um,
I've tweeted many times, and I know Doomcock has tweeted many times to the producers and Seth MacFarlane, telling them, begging them to put an episode out at Christmas, from
mhm,
season 3.
mhm,
I've said many times, if they was to put an episode of season 3, the Orville, first episode, because I'm sure there's episodes finished,
mhm, mhm,
put it out worldwide for free.
mhm.
You've got your captive audience, and you've got them for life.
Right,
And I think
right.
they've missed an opportunity by not doing that.
I, yeah, I don't know who would be to blame for that. It might be a studio decision. I doubt
Just
that Seth MacFarlane would do something that would say, "Well, I don't want to," because
just
he's,
yeah.
yeah,
Just set the Orville YouTube channel up. Episode 1, season 3, New Year's Day, Christmas Day. Obviously, we've missed that. For free, first episode for free, and you just watch the response. But excuse me, I think they've missed an opportunity,
I agree.
a
I agree.
a big opportunity.
Because everyone worldwide, even not people who aren't fans of Star Trek, people who are just fans of entertainment, are looking for something to kind of divert them for
Yes.
an hour. I mean, even people who watch professional sports. I don't know how it is in Britain, but in America, football viewership is way down. Basketball viewership is
Yeah.
way down. Baseball, and and it's like even that stuff that we had previously enjoyed, and so we're looking for kind of something. And like you had said earlier in the other stream when we were talking about the new Wonder Woman, it
I
was
was
like
just going to say,
this was their
yes.
opportunity. This was
It
their
was. It
opportunity
was,
to
mate,
kind
and
of
they've blown it. They've blown it
right,
big time.
right, right. I mean, it's still not too late. I mean, heck, Seth MacFarlane could surprise us and come out with an episode 2 days from now. But I'm not a betting man on that. But yeah, I would say that there has been a missed opportunity
It
because
would be.
everyone
Yeah.
is looking just for good entertainment, good television. Something that's fun, something that's uplifting, and that's exactly what the Orville is. It's all the best elements of Star Trek with a slightly less serious edge to it, kind of like the original series, right? Where the original series didn't take itself so seriously that there weren't moments of humor,
Yeah.
you know. And I'm trying to think as a TNG fan, there wasn't a lot of humor in TNG, and part of that was because of that was intentional. They wanted to contrast sort of the happy-go-lucky Kirk with the more staid and serious Picard.
Which is your favorite season of TNG, by the way?
I would have to go back and really dive because some episodes that I think were later are actually earlier and vice versa.
Okay.
But if you put me on the spot right now, I would have to say that season 3 had the most consistent offering of excellent episodes, one after the other, and that was the one I think that had
I'd agree with
best
that.
of both worlds. That was the one that had, I even want to say, yesterday's Enterprise. And some of these other ones, now there were some episodes that were world beaters later on.
Okay.
But as far as consistent, season 3 was probably the best.
I'm kind of partial to season 2.
Interesting.
I liked the Doctor.
Pulaski.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so when I was watching it live as a youth,
as a youth,
yes, with my mini helmet on in my mini Island Fortress, I was, I didn't like it because I liked Dr. Crusher and I liked that whole dynamic, and then it's kind of like, who's this lady that comes in that just kind of waltzing around, like kind of off-putting, blah, blah, blah. I guess they were trying to go with more of the Dr. McCoy personality, kind of, sort of, but it didn't work. But they wanted to keep her a woman, but then I rewatched it again. Basically, I sat myself down. I said, "Commander Culture, you are going to watch season 2,
Okay.
and you're going to figure out why the show didn't get canceled." And I watched it, and I did enjoy it, and I actually even liked Dr. Pulaski, who was the least likable character for me, honestly.
I tell you why I like it is
Yeah.
because season 1 was a bit kind of finding its feet, and it kind of didn't know what it wanted to be. Do we want it to be like old Star Trek, or do we want to do our own thing?
Uh huh.
So, first season it was okay. They had a good couple of episodes. Season 2, it was a little bit more kind of still original Star Trek,
Mm-hmm.
but they kind of started finding the feet a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, the stories were better. And it just seemed a nice hybrid, which I didn't know at the time, between season 1 and season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I did like Dr. Pulaski. I think her and the data stuff was pretty good as well.
I did too, because, well, yeah, like you said, it was the perfect bridge. Because season 1 and season 3 are like completely different shows almost, and even the characters are a little bit different. And they were able. Season 2 made Data. Season 2 brought Data along into the character that everyone knew and loved. Season 1 Data was very strange. And sort of like you said, do we want him to be like Spock? Is he, what is this character?
Yeah.
And of course, it helped that Brent Spiner is a very versatile actor. But yeah, it came along, and the thing that actually, I'll tell you, the thing that actually got me to rewatch season 2 was I was watching some reruns of the original series, and I saw Diana Muldaur, who is the actress who plays Dr. Pulaski, played in the original series.
She's an ambassador.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, I recognize her, 40 years younger. And so I thought, okay, maybe there's some continuity, here, and there wasn't in the fandom or anything. I think there might be some fan theories.
The blind ambassador, wasn't she? She was the blind who was in love with the, was it the thing that was in the box, or the ambassador, what was just shifting light? I don't know, I can't remember. It's been that long since I've seen it.
Yeah, I want to say that she was like possessed by something at some point.
She was the translator for this alien species, which nobody could see because it would send them mad.
Right.
Because she was blind, it wasn't a problem. And didn't Mr. Spock? He had there was a small defect in the visor, and it sent him blind.
Mm-hmm.
If I remember rightly, it's been on TV over here in the UK recently. Yeah.
Oh,
my God, I can't believe I. Yeah, I did like Dr. Pulaski. Season 3 was it got very slick.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree? It just
Well, they changed. They sort of changed the sets. It didn't have like those old back lot stage sets, with the plastic rocks, and they sort of worked hard at saying, okay, we're not in the 1960s anymore. We're going to do something that looks a little bit better, or believable, or something like that.
Okay.
But with Star Trek, okay, at the essence, it's always about the stories. So even if you see Kirk, double fist punching the Gorn, you're not like, haha, this is stupid. I don't want to pay any attention. I don't care about this. You're like, okay, there are limitations, and maybe my suspension of disbelief is a little bit hamstrung here, but the story is interesting. The characters I'm invested in.
Yes.
And it was the same with season 1 of TNG. Also, I wasn't around for the big debate between TOS fans and when TNG came out, but I can imagine there was a lot of like, who are these people, and that sort of started the whole Spock thing.
I think once we kind of bought into it, because obviously I was original Star Trek,
right?
We just enjoyed it because it was Star Trek.
Uh-huh.
There's obviously that transitional period, but at the end of the day, we just enjoyed it because it was good TV.
Hmm. Yeah, good
And
storytelling.
we just bought into it. And at the end of the day, as I've said, storytelling, that's you just got to tell a good story.
Mhm.
Where do you think the quality of TNG started going downhill? Where do you think the cutoff point where you thought, I think they should end it?
Um,
If at all,
no,
I personally,
okay, so I was really like getting into it by season 6. I was becoming, it was becoming kind of, my life, like, that way of the fan.
wow,
And it was like, I really loved these characters, like, and of course, okay, so here's the thing too. It was a certain point in my life, right? So I was a young man, I was in high school, you're
yeah,
sort of discovering yourself. These
yeah,
characters become extensions of you in a more meaningful way than it's just an entertainment product.
okay,
And and so I was like, I really wanted to see it continue.
yeah,
And I didn't, to the extent that I noticed a quality drop off, because in a way I did, in some ways, I attributed all of it to Rick Berman. I hated Rick Berman, to be honest. Didn't like, sacrifice goats in the full moon or something against him. But, I did not like him. I thought that he destroyed Gene Roddenberry's vision, and he cheapened it and he commercialized it. At the time,
I
that's what I thought.
but now you probably think something totally different.
Now I do. I'm of two minds of the matter. I think, number one, it's possible and maybe even likely that he was fighting against an immense tide at CBS and Paramount, that wanted to turn the whole thing into whatever Discovery became. Like proto SJW.
Really,
Whatever.
even back then.
That's all I can think is, I mean, they wanted to commercialize something, and it was, I mean, he could have just opened the floodgates, and we see that, like, in the movies, the TNG movies. It's like, what is this crap? That was the concession to the studios. I think, I'm no industry expert by any means at all, but I think that, okay, here you get your quote blockbuster. You get to do what you want. Let Patrick Stewart drive around in a dune buggy and go pew pew pew, and then let me make
Well,
DS9.
that was Patrick Stewart who wanted that, not Rick
Uh,
Berman.
well, right. That's what I'm saying. Rick
Yeah,
Berman relinquished, a lot of that control. And at the time, see, you would have never convinced me that Patrick Stewart was in the wrong and Rick Berman was somehow in the right.
no,
You know,
that's the irony of it all.
oh, it's bitter irony, and then you find out it's
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, he wanted to be the action star, because, I mean, it's even like, oh, why is Patrick Stewart there, doing, gymnastics around the warp core, while the Borg Queen is grabbing his hips and stuff. Like, what is this crap? Like, I'm watching this going, there's different ways to do this rather than, a 70-year-old man showing off his biceps. Um, and so, to the extent that Rick Berman kept that out of Voyager and out of, DS9, it
and
was like,
Enterprise.
wow,
Yeah,
and Enterprise, yeah. But I did, like I said, I didn't watch Enterprise, so all I knew was, DS9 was a bunch of religious hokum, and sort of like floating around with new enemies that, like, seem very
have you
improbable.
seen all of DS9?
Oh yes. I've gone back, and I love DS9. I
Yeah,
absolutely
I think I've
cherish
seen
it.
most. I think I've seen most of it, but I've seen it in splurges. So
It's
I've never. I watched it. I watched some of the series when it was on originally in the UK because I was working nights and I would come home on a morning and watch it. That's how I watched Voyager as well because Voyager was the Tuesday morning highlight. Um, so that's why I really got into it.
okay.
I loved Voyager,
Uh,
but yeah, with DS9, I always thought it was the poor man's Babylon 5.
okay.
and I've seen it in segments. I've never really seen it all as one coherent lump. Maybe I should need to, see it again.
I would say I would recommend that. I will say that although it does form a coherent narrative arc, which is more than I can say for all the other treks, even Voyager, where it has a start point and an end point clearly. DS9 actually has an arc that you kind of need to follow in order to understand it, rather than it being purely episodic. But at the same time, I'm convinced that this arc was not written out from the beginning. I mean, it was one of these things where
it did feel like that. Yes,
yeah. So it's just, and now we're going to do this, and there's another wormhole, and there's this new race, there's this battle, now there's a war, now the Romulans turn on us, and it's kind of like, I think you guys are making this up as you go along, but it was still fun to watch, and it came together in the end. It did.
I get the impression it was made up, but it was written well.
Yes, yeah, and good writing can make up for any kind of shortcomings in the planning.
Shall I say it again? Good writing. It is. That's all we need. Good writing. It's like with Discovery, they're just making it up, but they just haven't got the writing credentials to pull it off.
No,
it's just poor soap opera writers.
Yeah, and even like, I mean, I'm not a professional writer, but I would like to think that I would do justice to the characters in the world if somebody said, here's $1 million, we need a 100-page script or whatever, like I would do my darndest. These people, like, they don't care. They are soap opera writers. They are they seem to be very immature individuals. Not very well emotionally developed.
Right.
And so what their level of thinking at is so far below what the expectation of a Star Trek viewer is, that it sort of boggles the mind.
Well, the thing is, do they know their audience perfectly? So that's why it's been dumbed down.
How do you mean? Do you mean like as an intentional insult, or
no? I mean,
or you say they're targeting, people of lesser lights?
No, I'm not saying that. Well, I suppose I am. It's Star Trek Discovery seems to be aimed at the CW crowd at the moment. It doesn't seem to be aimed at people like you or I, because what I've seen is there's no sci-fi in it anymore. It just seems to be magical bullshit.
Right. Well, let me tell you this. This is interesting. I'm trying to think of how much I can say here without giving away my identity. I know a person who's a fan of Discovery, and they're somebody who enjoys science fiction sort of superficially, not in the like, I really like big explosions and starships, but what they like, they're a smart person. Okay, they're an intelligent individual, but they like thinking that they are smart and like to be seen as smart. Right. Whereas your standard Star Trek fan, maybe you or I, right? We want to be informed by somebody who's maybe smarter than us, right? I never thought about teleporters. Oh wow, what is warp really about? I don't know. Let's watch the next episode. The younger, this individual is younger, part of the younger crowd, probably part of the perfect demographic, politically progressive and all that they're aiming for, but they want their I guess you could say delusions about themselves or their impressions of themselves to be reinforced in what they see. Okay. So if something is magical, like a spore drive, they go, that's that's something,
it's fantastic.
Right, and then oh, that's really edgy. Yeah, they're saying the F word and they're smoking.
Whereas we go, what the fuck is that?
Right. Because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't
magic
inform.
Magic bullshit.
We see it as magic bullshit. It doesn't inform us as people who want to be informed. They want to see their own sort of narcissistic pseudo-intellectualism mirrored. Okay? That's what they want. And in that sense, Discovery works. It's just that there's not enough of those people to make up any kind of a fandom. And here's the point, Mr. Brown: they're very fickle. I mean, they say they love the show. They even can tell you who all the characters are and like what some of the stories are.
They're so fickle. They're jumping ship.
Oh yeah, but they'll miss like 5 or 6 episodes, or just be like, oh, I didn't watch that season, but I really like it, and I'm going to tell you why you're a bad person for not liking it, and it's like, okay, great. We're
starting to get serious again.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's a no-no on our 1-hour streams. But I mean, that's so.
The thing is, the thing is, the writers are writing it in such a way that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to pamper to a certain crew and piss off, trying to basically create diversity between, two warring factions, between the fan base, and it's not good.
No, that's idiotic. Even from a business perspective,
trying to divide a fandom.
It's like well, I mean, it's like in the bad old days of segregation in the United States. It's saying, if you're in Mississippi, 50% of the people that live in this city cannot come in and buy stuff in your shop. Well, what a dumb idea that is. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face because now you can't serve the 50% of the population and make profit off of that. What a dumb idea. And this is probably one reason that Mississippi didn't do as well as Michigan or something.
Yes.
And so and they're repeating this because they are they've turned that whole dynamic around 180 degrees. But again, we're getting serious.
Star Trek was, I know, and that's why I'm going to change it. Star Trek was for everybody.
Right.
And
women,
now,
men, young,
kids,
old.
It was for families. Just going back to the Next Generation point of when I said, when did it start going south for you, as it were?
Yeah. What's your thought?
Initially it was for 6 seasons, was it not? And they extended it by 1 season.
Perhaps.
I think, I'm sure it was. Right. I think the 7th season was a mistake.
Okay.
Because the quality had gone down. There were a few good episodes, don't get me wrong, but the quality had gone down. But the biggest bugbear for me was when Jay Chataway, who did the music, when I think it used to be Dennis McCarthy or McCarthy. I think it was McCarthy. He did the majority of it. Somebody else, who the name eludes me, also did the music. Then all of a sudden, Jay Chataway just seemed to do all the music for everything. And
well, it looks like our Mr. Brown has dropped out again. I'll try to hold us together here until he comes back. That should be very soon. I hear him now knocking on the door. Let's get him back in. Oh, are you back? There you are.
Is there a greater higher being trying to say, "Shut the fuck up, you're talking shit"?
I don't think so. I'm very entertained.
As I was saying, I just think the music if you revisit the episodes, you will see exactly what I mean. There was a lot of Cardassian episodes, and the music just seemed to be the same 4 chords every time.
You know,
And there weren't even nice chords, if you know what I mean. It
right.
just seemed very, very supermarket, and I assume it was for budgetary reasons. But the music doesn't fit the universe, and I
Uh-huh.
think that's when I started getting annoyed with Star Trek Next Generation. It wasn't even the stories or the characters; it was the music, the incidental music. And as soon as I heard that, then the kind of poor story stuff started coming in slowly when it started to go past its natural progression, its natural end.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'm gonna because while you were talking, I went ahead and I looked up the episode list for season 7, and by golly, you are right. So, some of the worst episodes. I can't believe that these were season 7. I was like, maybe this was like a throwaway from
Yeah,
season 4 or something. No, but
yeah.
like these are like okay. But I'll tell you, you know, I loved Descent, the one where Data and Lore were interacting with the Borg. They had parallels. They had the Pegasus.
Yeah, yeah. There
They
were a
had
few
lower
good little
decks
snippets. Yeah, 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 yeah.
and the Masks episode, like some really good ones. But then there's so
Oh,
much
I hated
crap.
that. Hated that.
You didn't like Masks?
I hated that one.
Oh my goodness!
The Borg one as well with Data. I just thought,
Oh, I
I've
love those though.
average, average.
I
Uh,
yeah
name some of the episodes in the last season.
okay. Well, yeah. So like, there's one Liaisons which I don't really even properly remember. Interface where Geordi rescues his mother's starship. I didn't like that
Yeah,
one.
that was a filler episode. Yeah, I remember
Uh,
that.
the Gambit part 1 and 2
Oh,
where
oh God, I
there was a
I hated that with a passion.
yeah Phantasms which I
Richard
liked.
was that with the great Richard Lynch?
Um,
That was recently on TV. That was where Picard became the Indiana Jones kind of arc.
right.
Sorry, Commander. I fucking hated them episodes.
Well, I'm not a fan
Oh,
of that either. We moved down to Phantasms, which is the one where Data had the weird dreams. I liked that one. That one, it seems to me, they tried to rip off in Picard. You know, where he had the crow and he was, you know, like forging the
oh yeah,
wing and things like that.
that was a good episode. Yes.
Yeah, I liked that one. Patrick Stewart directed it. You know, there was one where Lixana Troy went into a coma. No, I hated it. Picard and Crusher.
I can appreciate now Marshall Barrett's episodes.
I
I can
I'm
appreciate
not
them
quite
now.
there yet.
Oh yeah, if you watch them, yeah,
it makes sense though as a character.
They've got heart. They've got heart.
True, and they're a believable mother-daughter sort of pair.
The one where she was going, the one where she found that love, and he was going to basically commit suicide at the age of 60 because that was the tradition of the species. Do you remember that one?
So is that a 7th season one or
no? I think that's one of the earlier seasons.
Early ones? Okay, sure.
That was a great episode. Yeah, I think some of the nicest, sweetest, with heart episodes had her in the episodes. So yeah, I think you should give her another crack of the whip, my friend.
I may. I may. You know, because I do want to go back and rewatch these. Okay, so you've got the one where Picard and Crusher like telepathically like link. Didn't like that one. The one where the warp drive was harming the fabric of space, force of nature. I didn't like that one.
That was kind of that was okay. That was kind of telling us an episode. That was kind of
fleshing out the universe a little bit. Yeah.
That was kind of taking parallels with what was going on in the like global warming and kind of all stuff like that. But that's how Star Trek would do it.
It seemed, I mean, the idea was interesting, but I thought the execution was a little bit too clever by half, sort of thing, and it never sort of came back. That was, it's like that should have been an ongoing thing, right? Then next episode you've got the one where Data meets his quote mother. That one didn't do anything for me. The one I remember when people say season 7. The episode that stands out to me is Parallels, where Worf is jumping between alternate realities. I loved that one. And then it was followed up by the Pegasus
which
episode.
Was the Pegasus?
That was the one where Riker had been a commander under Pressman. And then they were cloaking illegally, and so he melded in with the asteroid.
The ship, yeah. That was all right. Yeah, that was
I liked that one.
Yeah, that was a decent episode.
Yeah, you get another one with Worf's foster brother. The stupid one with Dr. Crusher having
that was on TV yesterday.
Relations with the ghost and stuff like that was just
awful.
Makes you want to kill yourself. Lower Decks was the next one, and I really liked that show. That to me is what they should have done instead of Enterprise. They should have said, let's take the TNG, DS9, Voyager universe, and let's look at it from the Lower Decks perspective.
Well, they've done it, haven't they? They did it with the Lower Decks cartoon.
Don't even go there.
Have you
garbage?
Seen them?
No. I'm
going to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If it was the guy who obviously wrote it, he's into his next generation, and there were lots. It felt like Next Generation. To be fair, I think its heart was in the right place, but it's just all the agenda stuff was fucking bullshit. It could have been a great show if wrote in the style of TNG.
Oh yeah,
because it was all there, mate. It was all there. It was all there. The look, the feel, it was all there.
If I could psychoanalyze Mr. Brown for a minute here, based on my extensive knowledge of your psyche, I think that what it is the music was excellent for the opening scene, and you're a guy who is pulled in by the music. I think that's got to be part of it because there's so much. Because I'm the same way, and when I heard that music, I said that is Star Trek music. That's the first time we've had Star Trek music since Voyager, and and it's wonderful stuff. And that reminds me, because you had mentioned it, I wanted to say you may very well be right, and I'm going to have to go back and rewatch season 7 because I didn't know that about the changing of the composers. But there is a very distinct sound to Star Trek that this is something that DS9 did perfectly, and Voyager was only hit or miss with. Is it had perfect Star Trek ambiance music, and I realized this. Now I'm getting way off into the weeds, but there was an excellent Star Trek video game called Birth of the Federation.
Okay.
And the music that they had for that was stellar. It was spectacular, and it was spot on Star Trek. Like to this day, I still listen to that soundtrack because it's got this great ambiance. The composer really had it down, and so if you take that away, you're just stuck with some people in tight suits walking around in a starship.
I can appreciate how music sets the scene.
Yes, and it does. It really does. Especially in the good science fiction.
It's vital. It's vital with Star Trek. Because end of the day, you're right. It's people stood around in jumpsuits. And Jay, I don't know what season Jay Chataway basically came in and did all the music. It had lost me at that point. I just couldn't stand it. And bearing in mind, this was 25 years ago, 30 years ago, nearly, and it just killed it for me. It just seemed to be the same, as I said, 4 chord structure, whatever it was, just all the time, just so banal, so bland, just
Mhm.
so didn't know what it wanted to do, just so grey. Do you understand what I mean? Just so.
I do. Um,
If you watch some of the if you watch some of the episodes on TNG, you will pick it up straight away. Or, as I said, a lot of them were the kind of Cardassian episodes.
mhm.
And if there was something very, very exciting going on, the music killed it because it was just so soupy. It was just like soup.
Hmm.
Just, oh, it was horrible, mate.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm somebody who really music connects to emotion, to feeling.
Yeah.
And,
Have you got the Blu-rays?
for TNG and DS9,
Yeah, I just
yes.
what I would do, I'd go through Internet Movie Database. I think it's towards the. I think it's probably seasons maybe 5, 6, 7.
Hmm.
See where Jay. Just have a look at an episode for Jay Chataway. See where he started coming in. Yeah.
Hmm.
Watch
Well,
watch an episode where you know it's not Jay Chataway, and then like Dennis McCarthy or somebody like that, and then compare it to a Jay Chataway episode, and we'll have another discussion another time about it.
mhm. Yeah, we should. I definitely want to look into that when I've got some time because I'm looking here at IMDb and he wrote 59 episodes of DS9, which I always liked the music of DS9, and there was a lot
Yeah,
more than 59 episodes. But I'm like, is that just the ones where I didn't notice he was writing? You know, or and you're right. His influence is a lot heavier in especially in season 6
right. I
of
think that's
of TNG.
yeah.
So
That's where it started for me. That's where it should have finished.
right,
The,
and there were
the,
some good episodes in
there
there.
were the odd good episode, um, but
But
I think I do remember if I remember correctly. I don't think he was doing the music for All Good Things.
the final episode.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, yeah, he did not. He wrote the last one he wrote was Preemptive Strike, which was the second to last episode
Okay.
with
Who
Ensign
did the
Ro.
music for All Good Things?
Well, I'll have to look that one up. Uh,
I think season 6 should have finished with All Good Things, but there you go. That's just me.
let me see. No, all good things was the series finale.
It was. So who did the
Yeah,
music? Who did the
that was.
music for that?
Oh yeah, that was season 7. But uh, Dennis McCarthy, you got it.
There you go.
Oh wow, my
I
friend.
I rest my case. I know Dennis McCarthy did quite a bit of DS9. I would imagine there'd been because obviously going back to Rick Berman, you got to give
Uh-huh.
kudos. Got to give kudos to the bloke because he had about 3 series and a film series going at the same time.
Yeah, he was juggling quite a bit,
and it costs less. It costs because obviously all this interchangeable sets and stuff like that. It was less to produce than what Discovery is. $10 million an episode of Discovery compared to what it cost back in the day for all the Star Trek stuff. Because obviously they had all the interchangeable sets.
Right.
So it seems to me if you're gonna do a show, it's more cost effective to have sets that can be used in each show.
Right.
To keep the cost down. So when you think about it, I think Rick Berman back in the day, probably got a unwarranted criticism, but that's just me.
I would, as somebody who was one of his most virulent critics, I would say he did get a raw deal. I certainly didn't give him his due. I mean, that's a topic for a whole other discussion
It is,
there.
mate. It is.
But I can tell you here now. I'm looking at McCarthy, and he wrote more episodes than the other guy did.
Yeah.
For Voyager and DS9 and the Next Generation. So that would be a really interesting analysis, is to go in and say, the more highly rated episodes are the ones that he actually wrote the music for, or not. I mean, depending on how.
I don't know. I don't know. It might just be coincidence of whoever was writing for that episode. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it could be, but music does make a show. Like with Lower Decks, the cartoon series, the music and the intro makes me want to watch it, but my stubbornness to refuse to let new track into my headcanon prohibits me from doing that.
As I said, to be fair, it's the best Star Trek series of the recent bunch.
I will
purely by accident.
That statement.
Purely by accident. But if it was written as like original Star Trek or TNG or DS9, with none of this stuff that's going on, it would be a winner.
Yeah, but if Seth MacFarlane had been writing it, for example.
Yeah, it's just the kind of central character, female, the bestest ever.
Yeah, it's a stand-in for Mikey Spock.
Mikey Spock. Yeah, I know. Personally, it's. I think it's the best. I've watched them all, and there were a couple of reasonably decent episodes, to be fair, if you could look past the bullshit.
I have a hard time doing that.
I know you need to lighten up a little bit. I know you're a very serious commander.
I am. Yeah, I try. That's why I need entertainment. I need to have somewhere where I can lighten up. And it's like everywhere I turn, it's just drives me crazy.
Listen, my friend. If you get serious, I'll knock you down. Don't worry. I will just. I'll make sure we just keep it real. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay. As I said, Commander, I think we should. There's nothing to stop you having 2 channels on YouTube. By the way, you could have the serious stuff and the lighter stuff. There's, the world is your oyster, my friend.
Right. Well, I have thought of doing something similar. A lot of people, they'll have like their streams on one and their shorter stuff on another.
Yeah.
But like where I talk more pop culture rather than like politics and economics, because I think that politics and economics would be the bread and butter type discussion.
Okay.
That's what's going to bring in the views. What can I bring to a discussion of pop culture that Midnight's Edge or somebody brings? No, I can't bring anything. I'm just a guy, an observer. No,
you're the commander culture. You can bring your opinion. Opinion.
Well,
what's the saying? Opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one.
Yes, and they stink. So I don't credit my opinion on pop culture as being much more than extending much further than my own aura. But I do think that I have valuable things to say about it, especially as pop culture intersects with higher culture. So so I may end up doing that.
I think with what obviously we've been talking now for 1 hour 20. I think as I said to you before, 1 hour 30 is the optimum cut-off point. 2 hours and you're starting to outstay your welcome. But I think with this is supposed to be kind of the lighter little conversation. The lighter, fun stuff like this should be, an hour and 30. The kind of interesting that people really, really relate to stuff. The more serious stuff, because I know that's what you want to do. I think the more serious stuff is, you mentioned kind of like chapters within like a stream. I think what you should maybe do is the heavier stuff, keep it to say 20-minute bite-size segments. Right.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because if somebody sees like a tag and they might not want to hear about monetary policy, but they do want to hear about my thoughts about the latest congressional bill or something.
Yeah,
So
bite
then
size,
they'd be able to
bite size.
pick
Yeah,
up something.
because the great speech you did at the beginning of the other video, genuinely interesting. But if you was doing that for 1 hour, I think I would have tailed off after.
Oh, yeah, I would have gotten bored myself.
Yeah, so I think for that type of, I think you should keep it to bite size, because then everybody can. If people are on the train or whatever, well, once we start getting back to normal, 20 minutes, kind of bite size, I think would work for you. Because when you look at it, Doomcock stuff is all bite size.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've done
Yep.
a couple of streams where I've looked at the analysis, and people dip in.
Right.
I've done several 2-hour just therapy chats. It's good therapy. Good therapy, by the way. It says average duration 15 to 20 minutes. Because you'll get all this on the YouTube Studio. You'll get all the stats.
Analytics. Right.
So you'll know exactly where to. Yeah. So
well,
anyway.
and I understand that too, and I've noticed, since Gary has been like pulling snippets out, because he'll usually go long form,
Yeah,
he's been pulling out smaller bits, and I watch those more. I'm like more engaged with Gary now than I have been.
And he's been he's been really, really surprised at how his snippets channel has just exploded.
Right. Yeah, because I want to hear what he has to say, but I don't have like an hour to invest in, sort of all the other chatter around it. Not that what he says isn't interesting, but it's just like, it's a time issue. And if it's like, well, I've got an hour to listen to Gary, or I've got 20 minutes to listen to Doomcock, or to, Critical Drinker, or any of the other people that I listen to on other subjects, it's like I'm going to listen to the shorter clips. So yeah, I definitely hear you on that. And
do you think? You've gone very buzzy.
Yep, sorry about that. I just bumped the mic.
Do you think this? Yeah, it's fine. It's perfect.
Okay.
Do you think this people not having time is affecting the quality of television?
You mean like kind of in the overall sense pre-corona?
No, just people just have very, very short attention spans.
Oh yeah, I think so. I call it. I call it. I mean, to the extent that anyone's ever asked me, I started noticing about 20 years ago that commercials are much shorter and snappier than they used to be. So if you look at commercials by decades, going back even into the radio era, you can see that there's a point in the 90s when it becomes, at least in America, I know it's different in other countries. It's flashier, like brighter lights, quicker cuts, like stuff thrown at you, and then that's it. And here's the thing. We're getting into a really serious topic now, but the science behind advertising is some of the most precise psychological programming that is ever been done. And so when you see, and so commercials will lead the rest of television, whether it's movies or news broadcasts or TV shows. And so, yeah, I think it is now. And so, TV shows even now are just about snappy comebacks, and that's, we see that in Star Trek, but we see that everywhere else too, where it's like you have a sitcom, they don't even have time for a laugh track because they're just sassing each other back and forth until the show's over. And you just get this series of one-liners, unmemorable, by the way, one-liners, and then the show's over, and you feel like you're entertained even though you're not. It's like eating a cheeseburger from McDonald's. You feel full even though you're just full of a bunch of garbage.
When I get, it's been a long time since I've done this, but I used to have a laser pointer, which my cat used to love me showing this laser pointer against the wall. This red dot going along the wall really fast. My cat loved it. Could not get enough of it. And it's the same thing, isn't it? Apart from our laser dot, is adverts.
Right. Right.
So
It
we're no
is.
different. Essentially, we're no different to the animals and cats.
Right. Well, I mean, in that our reptile brain is easily triggered, and survival instincts, whether it's sex, food, safety, these kind of
Yeah,
things, they trigger us at areas where we're not even fully conscious of what's sort of going on, and so they're able to reorient our attention span. I think, to answer your question though, without getting too far off in the weeds,
okay.
more so than commercials, it's these smartphones.
Oh,
Of which I'm a user, but at this point now in existence, although I was one of the last people with a flip phone, but it's just instant gratification. Whatever you need is called up immediately.
it's a big problem.
It is a big problem because that's not the way that
Life works.
that life works, but it is the way our brain works. And so our brains are being hardwired into it may be melodramatic, but into kind of a cyborg sort of existence where
Yeah.
we're mated with our brains are mated with the speed of machinery, and start moving forward with those expectations. And I see that a lot in younger kids, especially, where they're it's not just the, this kid has
It's addiction.
ADHD.
It's addiction. People are addicted and they don't realize they're addicted.
It is, but it's addiction at a much deeper level than even something like drugs or alcohol, tobacco,
Yeah.
or even like pornography or something, because it's rearranging the structure of your brain
It's
organically.
hardwiring. Yes.
Whereas,
Yeah.
because something like cocaine is going to rehardwire your brain inorganically. It's going to go in there and jumble things up. This is like I don't know. It's like brainwashing. It's like the
It is
Stockholm
brainwashing. That's
syndrome
what it
sort of
is.
a
That's what
thing.
it is. Yeah.
So it's a weird environment that we're moving into, and I think, to go back to the beginning of our earlier discussion, is this is what we're seeing, and why I referred to it as an illness. In a lot of the strange behavior that we see among people who are intent on jackhammering the foundations of a very successful, very
So it's almost like
benevolent civilization.
these we're getting serious, but we've only got 2 minutes to get serious.
Right.
These people, myself included, who are addicted to their smartphones,
Mhm.
do you think the part of the problem is this kind of instant gratification of putting the boot in
Mhm.
makes it's almost like it's a super fix of dopamine, isn't it?
Yes, because it gives you ultimate control, doesn't it? I mean, when you have that smartphone in your hand, you control access to everything. You're like the architect from the Matrix. You can see it all.
Yeah.
You can call it up. It's all right there at your fingertips. You can even insult people with impunity, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, smite them with lightning, and it's like, and that does something to a human, because we humans are not really capable of omnipotence. And when we get flavors of it, well, what do they say? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so this is a power that we don't have. And I think even less so than kings, the peasants of the world, ourselves included, are really not capable of dealing with these sort of temptations. You'd have a king every once in a while, but the king had a whole support structure around him to keep him from going mad with power. But who's the support structure for that gal on the metro, or that guy in your workplace, or that kid in your daughter's school or something? There's no support structure to keep them from going, quote, mad with power. And so we have an entire society of I don't know, Napoleons running around that have this delusion of ultimate control. And in fact, they don't. And when that lack of control meets the real world, you get the same thing that the old-fashioned, guy who thought he was Napoleon, has. And they freak out and they have to be committed to a mental institution. Well, our mental institutions are overflowing. Mental illnesses are off the charts. I don't know how it is in England, but I mean, people, 1 in 4 Americans is on pharmaceuticals
Oh dear,
to
that's
help their brain.
relying on drugs is not good. Oh dear.
No, oh, I can tell you, it's not, because that rewires your brain in a whole
It
different
does.
way.
It
So,
does. It's not good.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
we've gotten around to being serious, so we probably better.
Well, leave it. Shall we leave it on that? I feel like there's another 10 hours of discussion just with that, so I think we'll leave it on that. Once I've left the show, you can still talk to me until you kind of end it completely. So
yes. So I'll go ahead and end the broadcast now,
and then that's it. Yeah.
we'll chat off stream.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Thanks, everybody.